I think that Rodrigo's jiu-jitsu, as I said before, is good, but it's not effective enough to finish Derrick Lewis on the ground. I think that Derrick Lewis is going to be able to withstand the jiu-jitsu, probably even be able to get back up to his feet. And I think Derrick Lewis is going to knock him out. Nascimento gets hit way too much for my liking. If he gets hurt by someone like Derrick Lewis isn't going to let him recover. And I think he's going to actually knock out Nascimento in this fight. I'm going to predict maybe a second or third round knockout for Derrick Lewis. The Black Beast got it done. Derrick Lewis with his 15th knockout in the UFC, knocking out Rodrigo Nascimento in round number 3. Just as I predicted, of course. So let's just go through what happened in this fight and how did Derrick Lewis get a record-breaking knockout. So Rodrigo Nascimento was coming into this fight off of a 3-fight winning streak, but that was a little bit of controversy because he had 2 split decision wins in that win streak. So you can argue that he was really coming in off of a 1-fight win streak, and he had pretty good jiu-jitsu, pretty good striking, but nothing great in either of those categories. And Derrick Lewis was coming in after getting kind of clowned on by Jailton Almeida in Brazil, just getting controlled for 25 minutes, just taken down and controlled for the entirety of his fight against Almeida. What I didn't know coming into this fight is that Derrick Lewis claimed he was on antibiotics and he had 2 torn shoulders, and so that's what really affected his lackluster performance against Almeida. So the fight starts out and immediately Derrick Lewis is throwing big punches, and we can see that Nascimento's first reaction is to shell up and be defensive. This turns out to be the correct gut instinct because he is getting tagged by Lewis's punches, so it is a smart thing to try to shell up and be defensive. One thing that surprised me in this fight was Derrick Lewis's willingness to entertain the clinch position against Nascimento. Something that I noted when I was breaking down footage before this fight is that Nascimento loves to get takedowns from this clinch position, and he was able to get multiple takedowns on Lewis in this fight as well. But Derrick Lewis was also doing some work in the clinch, as we'll see. So immediately he comes in, gets the clinch with Nascimento, which is something that Nascimento is going to also want to get. And he goes for this outside leg reap, trying to trip Nascimento. Nascimento survives it, and they just end up in the clinch. One thing that impressed me about Derrick Lewis in his clinch work is he was throwing knees up the middle, targeting Nascimento's body, and he had this really fun little outside trip, which was pretty nice. Derrick Lewis actually got top position a few times in this fight, but he wasn't really able to do anything with it, of course. Nascimento is the better grappler between the two of them, but Derrick Lewis's size and strength gave him a lot of problems. The other thing that I was impressed about with Derrick Lewis's clinch work is his ability to pummel in on Nascimento's like 50-50 arm stance and then just control Nascimento in the clinch, working to get this outside position. So he had really good control in the clinch, and he was landing knees, and he was using this collar tie to land elbows on Nascimento in the clinch. So all around, pretty good clinch work for Derrick Lewis, although it was hilarious because his corner kept yelling at him, "Stop messing around with the clinch, just go back and try to knock this guy out.
We need to stick with your bread and butter, and that's knocking people out."
And his corner did have a point, I have to say. So again, this was a tailor-made fight for Derrick Lewis to win. We just saw him do a 25-minute fight against a really good ground specialist in Jailton Almeida, where he just laid on his back the entire time and survived Almeida's submission attempts and ground and pound. Rodrigo Nascimento definitely does not have the skills on the ground that Jailton Almeida has, so in my estimation going into this fight, Lewis was really not in any danger on the ground, and Nascimento's striking leaves a lot to be desired, so he also wasn't really in danger on the feet. So Lewis was able to throw shots pretty much at will against Nascimento, and Nascimento would try to counter Lewis, but he really doesn't have enough power in his hands to pose a threat to Lewis. He also doesn't really have the counter-striking skills to land cleanly, and he was just retreating a lot whenever Lewis would throw. So it was pretty much like whenever Lewis decided to throw punches, they would land and he would get big reactions out of Nascimento. But inevitably, Derrick Lewis would wind up in the clinch. Again, he was really willing to let Nascimento clinch up with him. He landed good hooks from the clinch, he would land uppercuts, and he would use his collar tie to land elbows, as I've said. Also, great little cup shot from Nascimento here. Shortly afterwards, he got this leg trip on Lewis, took him down, and then Lewis did my favorite kind of jiu-jitsu defense where he just lays there letting his opponent try to ground and pound him, try to submit him, and something that I've never seen before and only Derrick Lewis can get away with, he gives his opponent full mount in order to stand back up. With 38 seconds left of the round, he opens up his legs, letting Nascimento get to full mount on him, and then he just simply stands up. He just posts on Nascimento's shoulder, pushing him off, gets into turtle position. Nascimento isn't balanced on top of him, and then Lewis stands up even more. Nascimento falls down, and Lewis actually ends round 1 on top of Nascimento. So that was hilarious. I've never seen that before. Derrick Lewis is truly creating his own type of jiu-jitsu. What are we gonna call it? The fat guard, where you just let your opponent mount you, or you just lay there letting them try to finish you to conserve your energy, and then you let them mount you, and then you stand up. So Lewis's corner comes in between round 1 and 2, and they basically say, you know, you're doing fine, but don't clinch up with this guy. So Lewis starts off round 2, and again, whenever he's throwing punches, he's hurting Nascimento. Nascimento's shelling up, and Lewis is hunting him down. But Lewis was really willing to engage in the clinch in this fight, much to the chagrin of his corner. I think that Lewis was really afraid of tiring himself out because Nascimento was just shelling up and letting him punch, and Lewis would just stop punching. He was trying to conserve his energy, which, you know, you can't really blame a 39-year-old heavyweight for trying to conserve his energy, especially when he's 6'3" and weighs 264 pounds, probably more on the actual fight night. So he would engage in these clinches and kind of just chill there. And, you know, he wasn't actually even losing these clinch situations. He's landing good knees, as I said, and he was able to break out of the clinch and land good shots. So again, another flurry from the Black Beast, just good in tight boxing. And I'm just showing this again because Nascimento was pretty much unwilling to throw anything back at Derrick Lewis, or at least anything meaningful back from Derrick Lewis. And again, Derrick Lewis trying to be a little bit too fancy for his own good, going in for a trip on Nascimento, which just fails, and Nascimento is just the quicker scrambler, and he's able to take Derrick Lewis's back, and he just rides out Derrick Lewis for the next pretty much 100 seconds here. And Nascimento had pretty good elbows, but Derrick Lewis's strategy is to just lay flat on his back and try to stay defensively sound. This was a pretty close round. I actually wonder how the judges scored it, because Derrick Lewis was landing the harder shots on the feet, but Nascimento had like 100 seconds of top control time where he did land a few good elbows. If I was scoring it, I'd probably still lean towards Lewis, just because he did land hard shots on the feet compared to just like 2 or 3 hard elbows from Nascimento. And Lewis was able to land like just good strikes in the clinch. These elbows in the clinch were really nice. So round 3 comes, his corner has begged him to take control of the center of the octagon to not clinch. 20 seconds in, he throws a jumping switch kick, which let's just look at Nascimento's reactions whenever Derrick Lewis throws something. So he retreats, defends, retreats. Then Derrick Lewis tries to catch Nascimento as he's coming in with a switch knee, which hits his stomach / chest area. That was when Nascimento was trying to throw strikes, so they were both trying to counter each other there. And we have a right hand that Lewis throws. Nascimento's moving away from it, so it just falls short. But then a few seconds later, Lewis throws a left hook. Nascimento's just standing there. Nascimento tries to throw a counter left of his own, and you see that he notices Derrick's right hand when it's just way too late, and he's being way too flat-footed here. There's nothing really special Derrick Lewis did to set this up. He just caught Nascimento when Nascimento was being flat-footed. And we see that this is kind of the limits of Nascimento's striking. He kind of is stuck in between two modes. He has his defensive mode where he's shelling up and moving backwards, and he has his striking or counter-striking mode where he plants his feet and tries to throw shots at his opponents. And this is just kind of the perfect striking style for Derrick Lewis to capitalize on, landing a big overhand right, catching Nascimento right on the temple, wobbling him, does the chicken dance, falls down, and Derrick Lewis does a good job of finishing off the fight from there. Always a scary sight when you look up and you see Derrick Lewis making this face at you. Anyway, great performance from Derrick Lewis. I do think this opponent was pretty much tailor-made for him to beat. Definitely, obviously hindsight is 2020, but he was the favorite coming into this, and for good reason. He is 39 right now, and I don't even think this would be a bad time for Derrick Lewis to retire. He's given us some amazing fights, some great comebacks, literally a legendary career. And if he wants to retire off of a signature knockout win where he does his signature fat man jiu-jitsu, got a few fun trips in this fight, and he just made everyone's night. He's always a feel-good fighter. If he wants to go out off of this win, I don't think anyone would fault him. He might never have gotten gold, but he got pretty damn close, and I don't think it would be an overstatement to call Derrick Lewis a heavyweight legend. Anyway, guys, let me know what you thought of the fight. Do you think Derrick Lewis comes back, or do you think he should ride off into the sunset off this stellar knockout win? Like and subscribe if you want more content like this. Thanks for watching, and everyone, have a great rest of your day.